Hello, malt mates. Welcome to the Whisky Bothy, somewhere in the middle of the Irish Sea, shrouded in clouds of mist and folklore and legend, etc. And I'm a little bit shrouded in mist for most of the time myself. But as and when I focus, I'm Ralphie, by the way. I review whisky. Primarily on this channel, I review Scotch whisky, particularly because it's my favourite single malts. Single malt Scotch whisky, particularly in small batch and single cask form, particularly with natural, more authentic presentation, can be a sublime experience, and it's a good way of consuming alcohol responsibly because the primary focus is on quality, not quantity. And it's quantity of alcohol that causes the problems that people experience in a very self-observing and slightly obsessive society. But in this review, number 1140, I'm not actually reviewing a Scotch whisky. I'm starting a short rum season. And this is a malternative, which is a malt, as in malt whisky, alternative review, because for a simple reason, we can oversaturate our palate with whisky if we're regular whisky drinkers and we start to suffer from palate fatigue. And one of the best things to do is to refresh our palate by taking a little bit of time out, going dry for 3 or 4 weeks, never does anybody any harm at all, and then engaging with a few alternative options to whisky, where we're getting different flavours, different sensation deliveries, a different feature in a spirit, and it helps to expand the consciousness of our palates. And I'm starting with a modernist rum in this short season. All the reviews that I'm doing over the next 3 reviews are rum, because after Scotch whisky, it's my favourite spirit. It's what I'm looking at, it's what I know a little bit more about, and it's what I'm buying. And there you have it. So I've just poured a little drop, a little bit, tiny drop more, that's just a little bit, that's better. Perfect pour, about, 25 cl. This is a bottle of Scottish rum. Yeah, I'll say that again, Scottish rum. It's not just that the rum's been matured in Scotland, it's actually been made in Scotland. It's produced on a very tiny little island just off the coast of the Isle of Orkney called Lamholm. Lamholm is famous worldwide for a small prefabricated building called the Italian Chapel. Now, the Italian Chapel was decorated as a simple Roman Catholic chapel by Italian prisoners of war who were based on Orkney during the last major global conflict. Well, they're all major global conflicts these days in one way or another, but you know what I'm talking about, the Second World War. And they produced this exquisitely detailed worshipping chapel, which gets visitors today from all around the world. And while they're looking for the chapel, they will pass J. Gow Rum Distillery. It's very small. It's a small reception shed, and at the back of it there's a larger, basically a cowshed, which has been converted, a small barn which has been converted into a cask warehouse. And I first became aware of J. Gow Rum when I visited the London Rum Show 2 years ago, at which point I had a vague idea that they existed, but they weren't on my radar. And subsequently I discovered that in fact there's quite a significant amount of good quality rum being produced in Scotland from imported sugarcane, which due to modern technological processes can be freeze-dried into sugar flakes and reconstituted very successfully by distillers who do not need to rely on indigenous sugarcane growing in their location. Of course, we associate both the Caribbean and Pacific Islands and Indian Ocean, anywhere sort of relatively equatorial, with rum, because that's where they grow sugarcane. However, it's with and this is what makes it kind of interesting, is the incredible globalization of rum production. Should we dismiss rum if it's not actually made on location where sugarcane is grown? In my opinion, no. And I'll tell you why. Particularly with Scottish rum distillers, is the amount of access they have to distilling expertise, to good quality discarded whisky casks, to the infrastructure which is already geared up for the production of high quality liquor. These are factors that I'm aware of. So before I go any further, I'm going to take the remainder of this review to actually examine this particular bottling that I'm recommending to you. There are good points and there's some minus points, so I'll highlight them all in the interests of fairness and disclosure. And in my next review, the 1140 extras, I'll go into a bit more of a deep dive on how I have connected with this distillery, where I think it's at and where I think it's going. Right. And this is something that I'm saying aloud because it's something that you, if you're an engaged and committed quality alcohol consumer, you'll find interesting. Anyway, I've poured a glass, I've let it sit, it's aerating, I'm rolling the spirit round the inside of the glass. A nose, clean, fresh, very professional, no excessive funk. There's a slight esteriness, but it is fruity, it is articulate, it is complex. This is 8-year-old, Pieces of 8, J. Gow Orkney rum, bottled at 43%. It has been matured using a variety of casks, including Madeira casks. And as you know, and I know, nothing ever gets worse than a Madeira cask. Madeira casks are simply some of the most proactive, successful liquor maturing casks you will find anywhere in the world, whether it be for whiskey, for rum, even for tequila. It's always a plus. Nose, slight red fruits. Having given it some time, it's soft, slightly confectionery. There's no doubt about it. There's a sweetness to this which has been rounded off very successfully by the articulate, vibrant, fresh, fruity, red fruit notes that are coming through. I'm getting what I would describe as soft cranberry notes. I've tried to find raspberry, I've tried to find strawberry. They're in there somewhere, but they're not quite there, if you know what I mean. Sometimes we find this, we're nosing something and you're asking, and it's best to ask the question is, rather than say, oh, that's strawberry, is to say, is that strawberry? Is that raspberry? Because we're making these connections that when we're really at the nosing stage, as we prepare for the tasting stage. 43%, it's slightly elevated from the 40%, which we're used to in Scotch whisky. However, I'm immediately aware that for £70 a bottle, which is what this costs, and you'll get many good Scotch single malt whiskies for 70 or under £70 a bottle. This should be at 46%. And also, I'm going to say it right now, it should be stating, because of this distillery's proximity to the whisky industry, it should be stating unchill filtered and natural colour. First taste. I'm expecting the sweetness to kind of crowd in because it's a rum sugar based distillate, but it doesn't happen. It remains gently crisp, clear, concise. You're getting a real hodgepodge, right? Hodgepodge for those. It means a complex combination. That's what hodgepodge means. A complex combination of red and yellow fruit notes. I'm clearly getting banana in there somewhere. I'm getting some soft mango, some rather bright pineapple notes in the background. But the foreground of the flavour is really about that slightly red and pink fruit note, which I was really, at some point, particularly when you add water, you think is a combination of pomegranate and cranberry. And when I add water to this, by the way, I'm not adding much. It's already at 43%. As I've said, it should have been at 46% at that price. However, that is, as always, my opinion. I'm adding 2.5 millilitres of water, not a lot. The age statement, by the way, is a genuine age statement. There are rum brands around the world where 8-year-old means the oldest rum in the blend is 8 years old. This is rum made to Scottish standards. So the 8-year-old is the youngest rum in the construction of it. It remains a single rum, but it's a combination of several casks. You can tell that. But it's a small batch. Why? It's a small distillery. It's niche. It's still relatively obscure, particularly to whisky drinkers, of which the majority of whisky drinkers are whisky snobs who will not entertain rum, whatever. Rum is always regarded by some whisky conservatives as an inferior spirit because Scotch whisky is the best no matter what, etc, etc, etc. You know and I know that is BS. It's absurdist and it's basically lacking open-mindedness and an articulate sense of taste. It's said by those that have a lazy palate that will still tell you that Johnnie Walker's an amazing brand. That sort of people. Generally the more boring people. You know what I mean. I've added some water, not a lot. The nose. For a rum, remarkably fruity. You're getting that delicate, restrained Caribbean-style ester note. It's very nice. It's nowhere near the tsunami of esteriness that you would get, say, in a Hamden bottling from that Jamaican distillery by the name of Hamden. But this is, it's engaging, it's good quality, it's refreshing, there's loads of fresh fruit. It is a very high standard of rum, and I think that the reason for this is quite simple, that selling rum made in Britain to British people is a hard sell because British people are looking at the cliches of rum makers, which takes British people primarily due to historical references straight to the Caribbean, where a lot of good rum is actually made. For example, RJ Seal, McCoy's, the real McCoy rum, highly recommended. But you've also got the upmarket stuff like from Foursquare, their exclusive cask range. I think that's the name of it. And you've also got other distilleries which already have very well established reputations and which I'll be covering in subsequent reviews shortly. So coming back to this, final notes, final nosing and tasting and a summary before I give this a rum mark. Interesting to note that this distillery bottles their own rum. I think that's important. They have their own bottling facility. They're using local water. They're keeping control of it. Very, very important. There are other rum distilleries in Scotland, which I'll give a brief introduction to some of them in my next review, just to give you your bearings, should you be interested. This becomes a little bit more perfumed on the nose after a few minutes. Of course, I'm squeezing these reviews into 20 minutes. To really get the most out of this, you need to give it at least 30 minutes in the glass. Take your time. The slower you go, the further you'll get. It's always the rule with quality spirits. Delightful. Unsugary. Crisp. Semi-sweet. Clear as crystal. Fruit and soft ester arrival with a little bit of yeast funk coming up in the development as it goes in towards the finish, which is light, crisp and sustained with a soft, almost slightly fudge, crisp, slightly sour caramel note. Lovely stuff. I recommend it, but it's a really good quality product, but you've got to look at the price. There's a premium for this, and you've got to keep that in mind. I bought this bottle because I think this little distillery is coming of age, and I'm particularly interested in looking at spirits that are on the periphery of the Scotch whisky mainstream, because I think that's where the future of flavour and brands is being founded. Here we are. I'm going to give this... No, I'm not. I'm going to give it a better mark. It deserves it. The quality of production, the calibre of the casks. I'm giving this 82 out of 100. It's my rum mark. I think this is work in progress. I bet this bottling is a very good ambassador for the brand. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my extra rum content on our whisky channel. Now that should be interesting.